We literally, I think we thought we were all that in a bag of chips, if you will. I say sometimes, and we weren't, right? We might have been a $400 million company, but I would say you're only as good as your last sale, right? You're only as good as your last gym you open and the last reputation. And if you don't maintain that, someone said to me one time, it was very painful for me to hear, said, "You're a necessary evil, your brand. We have to have you because it sells so well, but you guys aren't good to work with." Ooh. To hear that from somebody, to say, "I love your product, but I don't like your team." I want them to love our team, right?
Totally.
And we eventually switched that around, but there was people that's like, "No, that you're overreacting. No, people don't like us."
Welcome to the Fitness CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms. Here's your host, Bryce Henson.
All right, Bruce.
Yeah.
Before we switch over to the lightning round, you've been so gracious with your time, taking a 30,000-foot view at your experience, with Quest. You rose to the chief communications officer. You built incredible relationships. You threw awesome events. You got Quest, featured in a lot of great affiliations. What would you say was your biggest learning lessons, both like the highlights and also probably the lowlights, which then can translate to some things that really our audience can look out for in their journey?
Well, one of the learnings was, and as obviously I said earlier, we're a team, right? We became really big really quick, and I think people we stopped paying attention. I say we because I'm just as accountable, right? Even though I was out 40 weekends a year, we stopped paying attention to what the customers and the buyers were saying and the clients, right?
In what way?
Like I said, we were taking orders, right?
Yeah.
And when people, we had a formula. One of you talk about our would you say the bad worst day and our best day, if you will?
Yeah.
So our worst day was we had a formulation change. It wasn't a bad thing. We were following the science, and there was an article and a big conference about fiber. So we changed our fiber source. But what happened was,
you changed the source of fiber in the bar?
The actual what it was called too then. So the layperson would read it. It says soluble corn fiber, and instead of what it used to be. And what happened was a few people, as you know, social media is powerful, right?
Oh, yeah.
So someone said, "Hey, oh shit, Quest cheapened their bar. Look what they did." And we had a couple food bloggers talk about it, and talk about a hit. We were doing about $400 million in sales, and we took a 25% hit.
Ooh,
it's a big number, right?
It's $100 million.
Yeah, and what happened was we weren't proactive. What happened was, I hate to say this, but I was out in the field saying, "Hey, I'm talking to these retailers, and they're not really impressed anymore. As a matter of fact, they moved our product from the top shelf lower. We're not paying attention. We're not calling them. We're not doing anything." And their salespeople, "No, Bruce, you don't. The numbers are fine." Because numbers don't hit right away, right? Mm-hmm. A few months later, the numbers start declining, and then they're calling us in saying, "Hey, what's going on?" So we adjusted. We sent out a big newsletter and sent out 700,000 samples to everyone, and we eventually recouped. But my point is, that was a bad day, a bad time, and we weren't proactive on how we handled it. We weren't responsive to our partners. And one thing I tell people, I don't care how big you get, be responsive to your partners and your clients and your customers, because they're the ones paying your bills.
And I was going to say, what would you have done differently in hindsight?
Communication. We literally, I think we thought we were all that in a bag of chips, if you will. I say sometimes, and we weren't, right? We might have been a $400 million company, but I would say you're only as good as your last sale, right? You're only as good as your last gym you open and the last reputation. And if you don't maintain that, someone said to me one time, it was very painful for me to hear, said, "You're a necessary evil, your brand. We have to have you because it sells so well, but you guys aren't good to work with." Ooh. To hear that from somebody, to say, "I love your product, but I don't like your team." I want them to love our team, right?
Totally.
And we eventually switched that around, but there was people that's like, "No, that you're overreacting. No, people don't like us." So now the best day we ever had, because I'll go to a positive, was we were named the second fastest growing company by Inc. 500 in all categories, not just nutrition, all categories. So number 2, 57,000% growth. And the number 1 company, which crazy, was in the same city as El Segundo, where we are. What are the odds? But they made these iPads for kids, and they unfortunately went out of business next year.
No.
So we kind of profess ourselves to be the number 1, right? But no, it's sad for them. Yeah. So that was a highlight, right? In a few short years, you're named the number 1 fastest growing company in the country. I mean, it's pretty cool, right?
That's incredible.
And then, as you know, it ended. We sold to Atkins, which is a pretty famous.
Oh yeah. In 2019, I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Good.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And good lessons to take from the audience as well on their business journey.
Yeah. But one thing I was going to share with you, it's interesting, a story I tell people, and I always tell people, don't ever dismiss anyone. And one thing I was just telling someone the other day, we all have FedEx people that come here, right? And DHL and UPS drivers. And there was a FedEx driver one time. This turned into a business thing for us. FedEx driver came in one day. It was 100 degrees out. And I was at the front desk, and he said, asked to use the restroom. I said, let me get you a bottle of water. And while he was getting the restroom, I got him a box of bars, gave him a box of bars. And I asked the receptionist, do we ever give product to people when they come to the front door? And no, not usually. I said, we need to start giving people product. So I gave this driver a box of bars. 2 weeks later, he sees me. I just happened to run into him in the parking lot. He says, hey, those bars were amazing. He goes, but I got to tell you something. My wife is a nutritionist, a nurse at a hospital. She took some to the hospital, turned all her staff onto them. On top of that, she's also the coach for our kids' soccer club. They're now buying it at the soccer club. On top of that, one of the dads owns 6 medical clinics, started buying them for the medical clinics. So I'm literally like, what? So me giving him a box of bars, I actually drew this like an org chart showing all the people he touched, because we're still friends these years later, and I still send him product. But my point is I never dismiss anyone. That UPS driver, give him product. Give him a bottle of water. Give him whatever you have. It built relationship. I mean, to this day, we're friends, and it's crazy. And if you wanted to talk about ROIs, it probably has been hundreds of thousands of dollars in business, just people they've touched.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, if you want to create $1 billion company.
Right, give stuff away. But yeah, I always say don't ever dismiss anyone. Sometimes people don't think about the guy dropping off the package. Hook them up.
Oh, man. Bruce, you're amazing, dude. Hey, my friend, hopefully you love that short teaser of the recent episode on the Fitness CEO podcast. To check out the full episode, it will be dropping shortly. But in the meantime, there's some other episodes around here that you need to see.